Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1171. Death. 1,000 zhang. Truly indiscriminating large-scale attack. Perhaps luck would not follow a person forever. Coincidentally or not, Bear King had fallen into a nearly inescapable situation this time. A loud boom rang out from the sky, an unprecedentedly powerful thunderous sound. The tens of thousands of people on the ground jumped up together, their feet leaving 3 chi off the ground. Within a range of 100 zhang, all life, whether friend or foe, was all turned into ashes. A strong smell of barbecued meat spread out for over 30 li. Big Bear raised his head to the sky and roared, just as a bolt of lightning struck him. His body stiffened for a moment, and he roared again as a line of blood spurted from his mouth. As the fresh blood spurted out, the Bear King's mighty body suddenly collapsed. Right at the very center. Fourth brother. Eagle King screamed and extended his wings, soaring forward with a speed akin to lightning towards Big Bear. Kill. Not far from Big Bear's position, 6 Frenzy Blade Enduring Earths had discovered this change and were instantly filled with happiness. Without waiting for the heavenly tribulation to finish, they carried up their blades and charged towards Big Bear. Experts of their level naturally understood that they could not let this Bear King wake up. If he awakened, this black bear would be a true saint venerable existence. At that time, the rest of them would all be doomed. Taking advantage of the time when he hadn't recovered from that lightning strike, they closed in for the kill. Saber lights flashed. To these Frenzy Blade Enduring Earths, a distance of 100 zhang could be crossed in the mere blink of an eye. At practically the same time, 6 large snow-white sabers chopped madly towards Big Bear's still body. Everyone around him was looking on with great excitement and anticipation in their eyes. In this short 1 hour's time, this Bear King had already killed over 150 Frenzy Blade Enduring Earths and nearly 10,000 strange races soldiers. To kill him like this was already going very easy on him. Fourth brother AH. Eagle King flew forward with his face streaked with tears. His eyes were resolute, and his speed had reached a shocking level akin to a lightning bolt. In the final moment before the 6 Frenzy Blade Enduring Earths plunged their blades into his body, Eagle King's body morphed into a black shadow as he threw himself across Big Bear's body. There wasn't the slightest hesitation. Poo poo poo, 6 sabers sliced into the Eagle King's body at the same time. In an instant, fresh blood flew high into the air, and the iron-like feathers were scattered everywhere. 6 sabers, the equivalents of 6 Saint Emperors attacking together, all landing on critical areas. Eagle King's body was nearly chopped into 6 pieces. Fortunately, his body was large, and 4 of the 6 sabers had been stuck on his metallic wings. However, the other 2 sabers still plunged deeply into his body. The Eagle King screeched with pain, and then jumped up. His metallic wings were broken into many sections, and his body had been pierced through by the sabers. Blood gushed out of 4 large holes on his body. These kind of injuries were undoubtedly lethal wounds. And moreover, Eagle King had already consumed the Heaven Reversal Pill not long ago. Right now, even if Jun Moxie arrived personally, or if the 9 Nether 14th Young Master personally transmitted the purest Xian Qi to him while supplying him with the most precious spirit herbs, it still wouldn't be enough to save Eagle King's life. But he'd still managed to jump back up. And his eyes were carrying an extremely resolute determination. Using his extremely tough body to block wave after wave of deadly attacks for his brother that was lying on the ground. Fourth brother. Hurry up and get up. Quickly wake up, ah. Eagle King sounded like he was crying and praying as tears of blood streamed down his face. His metallic wings had already been broken in many sections long ago and was now hanging limply by his side. But when he saw someone sneaking an attack towards Big Bear, he still managed to raise his wing, and using it as a hidden weapon, he threw it out. 7 strange races 9th level endurers were directly caught by the broken wing. Screaming wretchedly, they fell right in front of Big Bear. As for the sabers in their hands, they were only a few millimeters away from piercing into Big Bear's body. They brushed past Big Bear's skin, stabbing deeply into the ground, the blades shining brightly. Fourth brother, ah. Wake up, ah. Eagle King cried out hoarsely as he fought with all his might to stop the attacks of the 6 frenzy blade enduring earths. Blade light rained upon his body continuously, bringing with it blood and flesh. Fourth brother, wake up quickly. Eagle King was already almost unable to speak now. His throat was completely filled with fresh blood, and if he relaxed even a little bit and spat out this blood, he would immediately collapse. He no longer dared to spit out this mouthful of blood. He could not die yet. Right now, his brother was still lying down behind him. But in his heart, he was still calling out wildly. Fourth brother. Fourth brother. Wake up, ah. Your little brother is unable to hold on much longer. Self-detonation. I don't dare to do that, ah. I can't even self-detonate because fourth brother is behind me. After I self-detonate, I won't be able to do anything else. Who will protect my fourth brother if I do that? Another saber landed ruthlessly against the Eagle King's shoulder. Screeching painfully, he roared hoarsely and stretching out his neck, he plunged his sharp beak into the chest of the monster that had chopped him, directly piercing through both of their bodies. Without any hesitation, he pulled the beak out, and ignoring the 3 more slices he received on his back, he turned around and pecked ferociously at another frenzy blade enduring earth. His arms were broken, and his wings were broken as well. Right now, he could only use this most primitive method of attacking. But his body remained unmoving, like a primordial mountain, using his body to closely guard Big Bear. No one can attack my deeply asleep brother. Truthfully, the Eagle King was not the only one who'd gone crazy. The remaining 5 frenzy blade enduring earths had also completely plunged into madness. They were like 5 third-level Saint Emperors joining hands, but they couldn't even break the defense of a clearly heavily injured Eagle King that should have died over 10,000 times by now. Yet for some reason, the latter was still not dead. The sabers fell madly like rain, and the Eagle King trembled heavily under the intense attacks, enduring and counterattacking. His body had already stopped feeling the pain a long time ago, and his eyes were blurry and hazy. Those sharp eyes that could see clearly for hundreds of li in the past were no longer capable of seeing even the figures of his opponent clearly right now. But in his heart, he was still madly hollering. Fourth brother. Fourth brother, quickly wake up, ah. Fourth brother, ah. Pu. Finally, 5 long sabers stabbed out, plunging into all of the Eagle King's vital spots. 2 sabers were stabbed into his head, all the way through his head. 2 were in the chest, stabbing into his heart. And 1 was in his dantian, piercing through the front and exiting through his back. The Eagle King's entire body shook. And like a statue, he froze motionless. From an extremely active state, his body suddenly fell silent. His eyes, which used to shine golden, rolled as he looked at the 2 blades on his head, and the snow-white blade in his heart. Out of despair, The Eagle King suddenly began to cry. Two streams of tears, along with the blood that had been suppressed in his throat this entire time, flowed out. The Eagle King was crying from the endless hopelessness of the situation. He wasn't afraid of death. And he wasn't crying for himself. The reason he was crying right now was because the injuries he'd suffered right now would be able to make him die 10 times over. Even tens of times. Death was nothing scary. And was not worth crying over. But he was crying right now, because there was no one left to protect his brother. The reason he was struggling so desperately right now was to safeguard the last bit of hope for his brother. If I go now, who will protect you? My fourth brother? With the last of his energy, he roared in a hoarse voice. I cannot die. I still cannot die, ah. What will fourth brother do if I die? Fourth brother. Fourth brother, hurry up and wake up. Stop playing. Hurry up and wake up, ah. I cannot hold on any longer. Eagle King could feel his consciousness blurring, and even his speech had become mumbled, and he only managed to form the words by straining his throat to the extent. In that moment, he even hoped that Big Bear was not truly asleep, but was only playing with him. The 5 blades were pulled out of Eagle King's body, bringing with them spurts of masculine hot blood. The Eagle King wobbled heavily, but still did not fall down. His 2 eyes were still carrying a boundless rage and hatred and endless unwillingness as he stared forward, unmovingly. In that moment, there was still a kind of kingly aura birthed from slaughter. Although his mighty wings were no longer there. Although his body was filled with wounds. Although all his bones had already been mostly broken. He still maintained a standing posture and a stance to battle. In anyone's eyes, he was still the magnificent Eagle King that soared above the battlefield. The King of the Skies. The peerless Lord of aerial battles. Even though he was standing on the ground right now. Yin. The Eagle King's body trembled as he cried out and took one step forward. His eyes were fixed resolutely upon the 5 enemies. Murderous and merciless. This was the last blaze of his life and also his final warning. It was as if he was warning the enemies in front of him. You cannot. And will never be able to harm my brother. In that moment, the 5 frenzy blade enduring earths felt a deep sense of fear and alarm surge from their very souls. All 5 experts took a step backwards. The Eagle King took another step forward resolutely. His eyes were still as cruel and the will to fight was clear. All the murderous aura in his body was still pouring forth. The 5 strange races experts took another step backwards together. The body of one of them even began to tremble. To be able to reach the level of frenzy blade enduring earths, they had already experienced tens of thousands of wars long ago. But they'd never met a person like this before. A Xian beast like this before. Faced with such a strong conviction, they actually did not dare to take a single step forward and face the Eagle King's killing intent. The boundless battle will that wouldn't wane even in the face of death. All to protect a brother. Although they knew that they only needed to take one step forward. Only needed to push with a single finger. And this Eagle King before them would fall. Never to stand up again. But for some reason, none of these 5 experts dared to move even half a step forward. Blood poured like a fountain from the Eagle King's mouth, drenching the earth under his feet. After vomiting out the blood, Eagle King took yet another step forward. The 3rd step. But just as he lifted his feet, it stopped at midair, freezing there. It was as if he'd turned into a timeless statue. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1172. Brothers. Brothers. The Eagle King's foot hovered in midair, freezing there. It was as if he'd turned into a timeless statue. Only his head was twitching, straining to slowly turn around and look unwillingly at his fourth brother who was lying silently on the ground. Endless hopelessness and worry laid in his eyes. Fourth brother, hurry up and wake up. I really can't hold on anymore, Eagle King begged in desperation. His voice was so soft that even he couldn't hear himself. Following that, his body suddenly fell silent. There wasn't any more movements from him. But his eyes were still flickering with that worry and helplessness. Fourth brother, I cannot protect you any longer. Eagle King's eyes were filled with pain, regret, and anxiousness. The Bear King laid there silently, oblivious to everything that was happening around him. He was simply too tired. His body was thoroughly exhausted and strained to the limit. When the tribulation lightning struck, it had nearly jolted the very bones out of its body. In the quietness, his soul floated calmly. There seemed to be something that he'd forgotten, unable to grasp properly. Right now, he just wanted to have a good sleep. He didn't want to think about anything and just sleep. But at this time, he seemed to hear a heart-rending voice calling out to him from a faraway place. Fourth brother. Wake up. This voice sounds like ninth brother, Eagle King. All of a sudden, Bear King's heart shook. Big Bear struggled to open his eyes. But no matter what, it wouldn't open. He continued to strain his eyelids, but they felt as heavy as mountains right now. My brother. My brother is calling me. Big Bear kept trying, but it seemed to be useless. His entire body felt like cotton. Fourth brother, wake up, wake up, I can't hang on any longer. It was the Eagle King's voice again. Big Bear's soul roared and struggled even more anxiously. Ninth brother. Little ninth. Just what did you encounter? Ninth brother, your fourth elder brother is coming. Fourth elder brother is coming to you. Just at that moment, the image of the Eagle King miraculously appeared in Big Bear's sea of consciousness. Big Bear seemed to have finally succeeded in opening his eyes. And as he looked at the bloodied brother in front of him, he felt a sudden sharp pain in his heart, as if his 5 viscera and 6 bowels were being mashed together. The Eagle King in his mind was looking at him, straining to open his mouth as he cried. Fourth brother, wake up, Following that, Eagle King's figure suddenly disappeared. Even more abruptly than when it had just appeared. Big Bear roared to the heavens and suddenly leapt up from the ground. He'd finally woken up. Amidst the blood-soaked battlefield and after passing through a terrifying lightning tribulation, the Bear King actually woke up in a miraculous manner. But the instant he opened his eyes, it remained wide open, as if his eyelids would tear apart. An indescribable rage gushed like a torrent into his heart. Before him was a patch of darkness, and a straight and sturdy body blocking silently before him. Unflinchingly. Red, viscous blood dripped steadily from his body, splattering onto Big Bear's body. That roar from him as he woke up caused the surrounding strange race's experts to tremble with fear. However, this person blocking before him, why isn't he moving? Why didn't he move? Why wouldn't he turn around to look at me? And why does this back feel so familiar? But his brother did not have such a back. Is it Little Ninth? It's somewhat familiar, but this back doesn't have Little Ninth's wide wings. No wings. No wings. A terrifying thought appeared in his mind. And Big Bear suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. An indescribable pain suddenly filled his heart. Standing up unsteadily, he took one step around and looked at the face of this figure. In an instant, he felt a blur before his eyes, as if countless huge hammers had smashed onto his head in an instant, hammering his body, bones, heart, and soul into pieces. Ninth brother. Little ninth H. Big Bear did not dare to believe the sight before his eyes as he rubbed his eyes and roared in an insane manner. This person before him was really his ninth brother, the king of the sky, Eagle King. A mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth. Eagle King's mangled body was still frozen in the same stance, his eyes blaring fiercely, staring forward as if he would explode with a deadly attack anytime, to protect his brother. Little ninth. Big Bear stretched out his trembling hands as if he wanted to embrace the brother in front of him, that body that was already gradually turning cold. But at the same time, he didn't dare to do that, as if afraid that he would disrupt the final rest of his brother. Brother. Little Eagle. Ah. Ah. Ah 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 ah. Big Bear roared with rage and grief, only feeling as if his heart had been shredded apart. Big Bear was 20-something years older than the Eagle King. He still remembered that when his ninth brother was born, he was still just a little bear cub, squatting before the nest and looking at the milky white eagle egg, listening to the little pecking sounds curiously. All of a sudden, the eggshell broke, and a sharp little beak poked out from inside. Following that, a wet and slimy little golden baby eagle chick crawled out, extended its neck and looked around at this world curiously. That was his ninth brother's first look at this world. His brother. A brother for life. The little eagle chick slowly grew up, finally learning how to fly and advance in cultivation. Finally, like himself, he grew to the level of a 9th level Xian beast, then to the peak of the 9th level, gaining the ability to transform. What a long and memorable period of time that was. Among all the brothers, he had always been the closest with Tiger King, because both of them had the same rough and direct character. As for the ninth brother, they had practically been bickering all the time even before they gained the ability to transform, arguing for several hundred years, nearly half their lives. Even until today, not long ago, they had still been arguing. Big Bear's thoughts replayed endlessly in his mind like a tide. He still remembered that on the way here, he sat on the back of the Eagle King, and both of their hearts were filled with worry and unease. Bear King. Stinky little eagle. Why are you flying so slowly? When will we reach the pillar of heaven's mountains like this? Eagle King. Why don't you come and do the flying then? Feck. Get off me then. If I were flying alone, I'll be able to go with twice the speed. The weight of you along with that stupid blade of yours is over 2,000 gene heavy. A dumb clumsy bear is indeed still a dumb clumsy bear. Bear King. How about I throw this handle down, and only bring the sword? Eagle King. Nonsense. That blade will definitely become our ultimate weapon if we bring it to the battlefield successfully. What kind of idiotic words are you saying right before the start of the final battle? After so many years, your brain hasn't improved at all. Bear King. This daddy is your fourth elder brother. You've scolded me for an entire lifetime. Aren't you satisfied yet? Eagle King. Satisfied your head. Thinking here. Big Bear's eyes welled with tears. Little Eagle, how I wish that your fourth brother can still be scolded by you one more time. With his thoughts in disarray, He seemed to have gone back to that moment when he was riding above the Eagle King's back, hearing the solemn voice from his little brother's mouth. Fourth brother. This battle concerns the life or death of everyone. You must not, at all costs, be rash. No matter how you cannot hold your temper back, you must still control yourself. Big Bear had roared with laughter. Little Ninth. Your fourth older brother understands. However, you should also take care of yourself. Don't worry, even if this Bear King has to die, I will still make sure that you return to Tianfa safely. Bullshit. The Eagle King actually grew angry. Who is asking you to die? Stop speaking such unlucky stuff at this kind of time. After saying that, the Eagle King fell silent for a moment before saying something in a soft voice. At that time, the wind was rushing by his ears, and Big Bear was looking around the sky, and didn't hear clearly what he'd said. Now that he thought back to it, seemed to be able to feel the clouds passing beneath him again, and the sentence that he hadn't heard clearly suddenly sounded as loud as thunder in his ears. Fourth elder brother, even if I have to throw away my life, I also will not let you die. And now, the Eagle King had indeed used his very life to make true those words. Anyone who'd suffered those grievous injuries would have died several tens of times, and hundreds of times long ago. But this proud Eagle King of Tianfa had somehow gotten the strength from an unknown source and held on for so long until the Bear King had woken up. There was no other reason, other than it was for his brother. Even if I die, I will not allow anyone to hurt my brother in front of me. Brothers. 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 This was brotherhood. Even if I had to die, I will not let you die. I would rather die first than see you suffer any hurt in front of me. This was brotherhood. Big Bear suddenly understood everything. Ninth brother. Ninth brother. It was this older brother that had implicated you. This older brother had already made up my mind to protect you. But in the end, it was you who used your life to protect me. If you left like that, this older brother, how can I live with myself? How can I bear this awe? When the two were together, no matter how often they quarreled, the Bear King had never truly gotten angry. He knew that this was the deep relationship between them as brothers. The Eagle King never liked to talk much, and he was quiet most of the time. But to him, he always had plenty of things to scold him about, as if hating that the idiot bear was not living up to his expectations. To waste so much saliva and effort. If it wasn't for a brother, who would do say so much? At times, he was indeed too headstrong and too dumb. The Eagle King was always worried that he would suffer because of it. And no matter what matter it was, the Eagle King would always give him a good scolding first, before charging in front of him. No matter what. No matter what matter it was, or who was in the right or wrong. Today, it was still old Ninth, Little Eagle, who had stood in front of him to protect him, draining the last drop of his blood while standing in front of him. Although he'd died, his body was still standing there protecting me. Still unable to stop worrying about me. Big Bear grabbed the dark red and sticky substance in front of his chest, and his eyes reflected the terrifying redness. This was his little ninth brother's blood. The blood of his ninth brother. All of a sudden, Big Bear's eyes turned exceedingly ferocious. Ninth brother's blood cannot be wasted for nothing. Ninth brother. Ninth brother. This older brother has let you down. If I could have woken up even a moment sooner. If it was only just a moment sooner. There were countless ghastly holes and cuts on the Eagle King's body, and even the large wings that he had been the most proud of was missing. All around him, there were countless metallic feathers, with the furthest ones being several tens of zhang away. Big Bear suddenly felt his chest constrict as he struggled to breathe. In order to protect me, what had ninth brother endured? Such heavy injuries are even more cruel than death by having one's body torn apart. Ninth brother. Bear King finally cried out in a sorrowful manner. With the deepest and most painful part of his heart, he spat out those two words. The Eagle King's body still remained standing frozen in time, his eyes still blazing fiercely, as if he was warning everybody about something. Big Bear choked and clutched his chest and suddenly turned around, staring ruthlessly at the five frenzy blade enduring earths not far away. In an instant, his eyes turned exceedingly cold and terrifying. The tough, green veins on his temples also twitched heavily with rage. Step by step, he walked forward. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1173. Heroic Loyalty. He was like a broad mountain, moving slowly, yet softly. Because he was afraid that if he stepped too heavily, he would end up disturbing his ninth brother who was deep asleep. Ninth brother had already slogged for a lifetime and protected me for all his life. Right now, I must let him sleep peacefully at least. No one will be allowed to disturb him anymore. Absolutely not. It was you all who hurt my ninth brother. Big Bear's voice was deep and heavy, like a volcano that could erupt at any moment. Yes, hurt. Ninth brother isn't dead. And he wouldn't die as well. Big Bear thought in his heart. If anyone dares to call my ninth brother dead, this daddy will tear him apart from limb to limb. No matter who it is. The five frenzy blade enduring earths suddenly felt their souls tremble for some unknown reason. A heavy pressure which they had never felt before crushed down heavily against their hearts. Such a feeling was as if a primordial giant beast had suddenly set its eyes on them. And they didn't have even the slightest ability to escape at all, and could only stand there and get slaughtered. Their lives were no longer in their hands. So what if it's us? One of the frenzy blade enduring earths wanted to say with a mocking laugh, but his voice came out in a hoarse croak instead. We're enemies on the battlefield. Could it be that? Could it be your motherfucking ancestor? Those who hurt my brother must die. Die. Big Bear roared and suddenly spun around, his speed reaching an indescribable level as he caught this strange race's expert in his hand. Then, with a heavy punch, his fist slammed into the latter's dantian. With a loud bang, the fist went in through the male side's body and exited through the female side's body, bringing with it a mess of internal organs. Destroying the dantian first, removing any chance of a spirit seed forming. The dantian was destroyed, and the xian cultivation was gone. However, the person was still not dead. Wanting to die just like that? Not that simple. Because dying so easily was simply too luxurious a matter. A fellow who hurt my brother wishes to die so cleanly? Where were there such a good thing in the world? The Bear King's heart was filled with rage and destruction. Little Eagle, my ninth brother. I will make sure to bury all the strange races freaks here with you. Big Bear swore in his heart. Right now, the Bear King only had one wish in his heart. To stand up for his younger brother. To take revenge. That was all. Big Bear's abnormally large body flashed in a strange way again, and another frenzy blade enduring earth was caught in his hand. This frenzy blade enduring earth instantly used both his blades, hacking wildly towards Big Bear's body. However, he did not seem to have noticed it. Pooh pooh. The two sabers landed on Big Bear's body, cutting about 3 inches into his skin. But that was it. It could no go any deeper. After enduring the baptism of the lightning tribulation, Big Bear was already a true Saint Venerable expert. Right now, the difference in strength between him and these third-level Saint Emperor strange races were simply too wide, reaching an incalculable level. It was already a very impressive result that the sabers managed to cut Big Bear so deeply. But at the same time, Big Bear's huge palm had also been thrusted ruthlessly into this person's conjoined body, similarly destroying their dantian. Then, his muscles bulging wildly, he ripped the male and body apart by the spine, causing a loud crack to ring out, before throwing them onto the ground, piled together with the other strange race's expert from before. Following that, he turned his large blood-red eyes towards the other 3 strange races' frenzy blade enduring earths. His eyes were filled with the rush of vengeance. The other 3 had already been so frightened that their souls had flown away long ago. With a whooshing sound, they instantly turned around to flee. But to the current Bear King, their speed was too slow. Roaring with rage, his body flashed 5 times, and Big Bear's body suddenly had 6 more saber scars. However, the 3 strange races experts had also been caught by him. Forcefully destroying their dantian as before, he chucked them together with the previous 2. The 5 previously impressive frenzy blade enduring earths had now been turned into a bunch of complete cripples, unable to seek life or pray for death. After capturing all the culprits, Big Bear straightened up his body and turned around slowly. His eyes filled with pain, he looked at his brother. He didn't dare to turn his head and could not bear to turn his head. And so, he tried his best to turn as slowly as possible. He was even somewhat hoping that the present situation was the Eagle King playing a prank on him. He thought that if he turned around slower, the Eagle King would suddenly break into a smile and jump up on him, slapping him with a wing and calling him a big dumb bear. If that really happened, he felt that he would definitely faint from happiness. It would be fine even if he died from joy. 9th brother. As long as you wake up, this elder brother is willing to let you scold me for a lifetime. This 4th brother is willing to die in your stead. I would rather die in your place. 1,000,000 times. As long as you wake up. Please wake up. The Bear King didn't know that that was the exact same thoughts that the Eagle King had just a moment ago. 4th brother. As long as you can wake up, I'm willing to die for you, 1,000,000 times. But no matter how slowly he turned, it would eventually come to an end. As the figure of the Eagle King slowly left his sight, Big Bear felt a stinging sensation in his nose, and he suddenly bawled aloud with sorrow. He cried so bitterly that he squatted down and clutched his head tightly as he knocked his head with his large fists continuously. You stupid idiot bear! Why did you have to collapse at this kind of time? Why couldn't you just endure for a moment longer? You really deserve to die. You are the one who truly deserves to die. I'm the dumbest idiot bear in the world. Ah! Big Bear howled in a heart-rending manner. That rough and ugly voice was enough to cause anyone who heard it to feel a deep sorrow in their hearts. The shredded clothes on the Eagle King's body fluttered lightly in the wind, while he remained standing there coldly, unmoved by the events of the world. As for the heartbroken tears of his brother, he also did not react at all. Tian Fa's eagle had in this moment completely passed away. My king! A loud cry rang out from the distance, shaking the entire sky. In an instant, the sky darkened. Countless steel feathers fell down from the sky, covering the earth. The huge black wings interlapped, blocking the sun. Big Bear turned and looked up, only to see the remaining less than 800 Eagle Tribe warriors. Regardless of the scale of their injuries, they'd all transformed back to their original forms and were soaring above the sky. Their eyes were cold and calm like the Eagle King, fierce and determined. What are you little eagle brats thinking of doing? Are you trying to rebel? Big Bear stood up and roared. Get down here for me. His voice suddenly cracked and choked. Hurry up and get down for this, Daddy. The Bear King had already guessed their intentions. Faced with the commands of a beast king, these eagles were actually completely unmoved. Before this was an impossible matter. A patch of black mass moved slowly through the sky. Although their formation was already messy, they were still moving steadily towards the place where the main force of the strange races were formed. They carried a heaviness and pressure as though a mountain. Although they were moving very slowly, their aura was filled with conviction. If the king is dead, we shall be buried alongside him. Tian Fa's eagle would forever be accompanied by his brothers and clansmen no matter where he went. No matter what, he would always be the king of the sky. And wherever our king goes, we will follow. Through life and death. Little 17th. Feck. Stop messing around. Hurry up and get down here for this, Daddy. Right now. Get down here. Big Bear roared anxiously, blood seeping out from his mouth. The black eagle at the head of the flock turned and looked silently at Big Bear, before locking his eyes back on the body of his king. Lowering his eyes slightly, he said in a steady voice, Bear King, there's no need for you to say any more. This is an internal matter of our eagle tribe. The king is dead, and he died alone. He needs his soldiers to accompany him. Even if he's traversing through the Yellow Springs, the king of the eagles will still need his soldiers to serve him. The pride of the eagle tribe will not permit our king to go on his way alone. We need to go to him right away. Whether it is the 9 Nethers or the Yellow Springs, we will still stay by his side. His voice was calm, without any sorrow or pain. It was as if he was talking about an extremely trivial and common matter. Big Bear's tall body trembled helplessly as he looked up at the flock of determined eagles. In that moment, he only felt a deep pain in his heart, and a sense of powerlessness. It's all because of him. If not for him, 9th brother would never come to this godforsaken place where he couldn't turn back from. And these Eagle Tribe brothers would not have to die with their king. This was all because of him. Hot tears fell from Big Bear's eyes as he looked at the huge group of eagles in the sky. Roaring with rage, he suddenly knelt down with a loud plop and looked up. Brothers. My brothers, this old bear is begging you here. I'm begging you all, Come down here. Come down, woo-woo. In the sky, Eagle 17 looked down and heavy emotions flickered in his eyes. However, he still shook his head unyieldingly. Bear King, you are a beast king of Tian Fa. Us common beasts do not dare to accept you begging us. But right now, please forgive us for defying your orders. Our king is waiting for us. We need to go. We cannot let our king go off on his journey alone. There are dangers and old enemies beneath the Yellow Springs, and mountains of blades, and seas of fire. How can we let our king brave through that alone? Bastardly things. There are still so many strange races freaks here. And the war for seizing the heavens after this. There's also, in any case, you all still have many responsibilities on your shoulders. You idiot fellows. Why you? I'm begging you all. I'm begging you. Come down here, I'll kill you bastards. My dear brothers, come down, Big Bear's words were already incoherent, and he cursed and begged bitterly. This was a beast king of Tianfa. A mighty bear king who'd never dropped a tear, or bent the knee to anyone. But right now, he'd broken the exception and still failed to retain the hearts of the brave warriors of the Eagle tribe. The king of their race was an irreplaceable existence in the hearts of these warriors. I'm sorry. The war for seizing the heavens no longer holds any meaning for us. The people of the world also holds no meaning for us. We've come here only for the glory of Tianfa and the honor of the Xian beasts. We came here to follow our king, to have a grand battle with him. Apart from that, we had no other intentions. Now, our king is already gone. And we naturally have to go as well. The lives of the people of the world are not comparable to even a single hair on the head of our king. They are not worthy. The pride and arrogance of our Eagle tribe is unrivaled under the heavens. We only fight for the Eagle tribe. And we only fight for the Eagle king. We will make our king remain as proud and mighty, even in the underworld. Eagle 17 said calmly. Lord Bear King, and our Bear tribe warrior comrades. May we meet again in the next life. Let our Eagle tribe display once more the radiance of Tianfa Holy Land as the overlords of the sky. Our king. Please wait for us. We're coming. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1174. 9 Firmaments Bloodshed. Cry of the Eagles. After that, Eagle 17 did not say anything else. He didn't even take another glance downwards. A total of 800 Xian eagles cried out together in a bright tone, their shrill eagle cries piercing through the mist and into the 9 heavens. Following that, they once again raised their heads and cried out. Eagle 17, who was in the lead, tilted his body and began to fly upwards. His posture was proud and unyielding. 800 Xian eagles followed closely behind him, flying into the clouds. In a short moment, the huge group of eagles had already turned into a tiny black dot in the sky. At this time, Eagle 17 suddenly stopped climbing. Then, with a shrill cry that broke the sky and scattered clouds, his entire shone with a golden light as he dove downwards. My king, I'm coming. You went so quickly, but why didn't you take me along? We've said before that we will follow you forever, in this life and the future lives. 9 Firmaments Bloodshed Cry of the Eagles. Burning sky collapsing earth Xian Eagle soul. This was the ultimate forbidden grand technique of the Eagle tribe. Over 100 peak 9th level Xian eagles were needed to form this combined technique. And to use it meant that the eagles were planning to perish with their enemies. The power of this move was exceptionally terrifying, far surpassing a normal Xian beast self-detonation. It was also the only way for the Eagle tribe king's guards to send off their kings throughout history. Only the most revered Eagle kings would receive such a grand treatment from the Eagle tribe. Before this, such a thing had only happened once in the last 10,000 years. And that was over 8,000 years ago. Don't! Big Bear roared desperately, his entire body trembling with the effort. At this time, the person who wanted to die the most was him. The person who wanted to accompany his brother the most in the netherworld was also him. However, he could not die yet. His mission hadn't been accomplished yet, and there were still over 1,000 Bear tribe clansmen watching him from behind. Big Bear believed that if he died now, those 1,000 over Bear warriors behind him would similarly do the same thing as the eagles, following after him. The war for seizing the heavens, or the people of the world, were completely nothing to them as well. This was the most unique and extreme form of loyalty in the clans. And such a thing would only happen with Xian beasts. Such pride, such idiocy, and such disregard for anything else. And because of this, Big Bear could not die. At least, not right now. His lips was already bleeding heavily from his teeth biting too hard into them. Blood and tears poured out of his eyes. And his heart had already shattered into many pieces. He knelt on the floor, clutching the ground with his hands as his body trembled. Long live the king! Long live Tian Fa! Following behind Eagle 17, countless Xian eagles' bodies turned golden as they dove down with him. Their stance was proud and graceful, steady and determined. Although their king was no longer there, their formation was still neat and perfect. After all, they could not disgrace their king. Though they were going to their death, they would still remain disciplined and neat. So that when they passed over to the other world, they would immediately be able to display their strongest fighting strength. To fight for the king. With 10 in a group, they still maintained the formation that the king had taught them. The area they were attacking was wide, but each group was heading to a place where the strange races had gathered in the greatest numbers. Faced with such a bombardment technique from the sky, no one would be able to dodge at all. Countless explosions that were violent to the extreme constantly rang out, far surpassing any of the self-detonation forces thus far. Such violent attacking methods caused even the sky and the earth to shake and tremble. In the sky, there were still a massive number of golden shadows diving down from the highest point. Carrying the conviction of loyalty to their fallen king, they plunged into the midst of the strange race's ranks, unleashing the most terrifying and brutal kamikaze-style attacks. The Eagle tribe was using this most unique and dazzling display that burned their very lives, to perform the final send-off for their tribe's most respected king. Using their lives, they performed a song that would resonate through all lifetimes, transcending the realms of the living and dead. The lives of tens of thousands of strange race invaders. That would be the everlasting burial gifts for their king in heaven. The Eagle King's proud body remained straight and tall, cold and expressionless. Although his eyes had already turned listless, they were still exceptionally sharp, as if they could see through the endless void, and opening up a wide path for his brothers. The heaven-shaking explosions finally came to a close. An area of several thousand zhang around the center of explosions was completely bare, without a single living being. It was completely empty. At least over 50,000 strange races invaders had been completely turned into ashes after this violent explosion. 9 Firmaments Bloodshed. Cry of the Eagles. Burning sky, collapsing earth. Xian Eagle Soul. The might of an ancient forbidden technique legacy like this was truly terrifying. 800 Xian Eagles, using their flesh and blood, had created a legendary tune of loyalty that would be remembered for ages to come. Even though they had to die, even though they decided to detonate their bodies, they were still afraid of harming their bear brothers, and so they chose a faraway location. With that grand explosion, they'd forcibly separated the battlefield into two, only leaving behind the head and tail of the enemy, the two extremes. Whether in life or death, the only ones that they couldn't stop showing concern for was their brothers. These brothers that came from the same homeland. Tian Fa. The sky was suddenly painted in red, turning into a large blood-red eagle. The eagle circled the sky, climbing higher and higher, finally disappearing into the clouds. The strange race's huge army had been shorn to a pitiable 10,000 after such a terrifying attack. Furthermore, all of them had already lost their minds from fear, and their morale had all but disappeared. The remaining bear tribe warriors definitely had more than enough strength to deal with them. The army that had come charging out with great momentum and vastly superior numbers had already been mostly turned into a patch of charred land. And so, the Eagle tribe warriors was able to leave with a very peaceful mind. They could leave to accompany their king without any worries. Vengeance for our Eagle tribe brothers. Vengeance for our Eagle tribe brothers. For all the Eagle brothers who'd sacrificed themselves. Brothers. Kill. In the distance, the Bear tribe warriors were already charging forward madly, their faces stained with tears as they madly charged towards the strange race's army. At this point, the outcome of this battle had already become certain. However, they would still not let off a single enemy. All the warriors of Tien Fa were like crazed beasts at this point. The remaining 10,000 strange races soldiers had already been scared until they fled in all directions, despite still having 10 times more in numbers than their enemies. The frontmost soldiers were instantly cut down by the frenzied Bear tribe warriors, while the few thousand at the back were more fortunate since there was a wide gulf in the middle of the battlefield, managing to flee back into the strange race's mainland. Too terrifying. That battle was completely a nightmare. These Tien Fa warriors were even more terrifying than the rumors described them, and they were more frightening than demons in dreams. Big Bear crawled up slowly and looked at the still body of the Eagle King. As he looked at his close brother whom he'd shared almost his entire life with, his heart shook. He walked 2 steps forward with his face completely stained with tears. Then, he reached his arms out carefully and hugged him tightly. It was as if he was afraid that he would hurt his little brother. Although the Eagle King could no longer feel anything. Little Eagle, wait a little longer, and your 4th elder brother will bring you home, back to Tien Fa. Big Bear carefully laid him down and touched his now cold face with his trembling hands. Little Eagle. I've already captured those evil freaks who harmed you, how do you want to deal with them? He tilted his head, seemingly still conversing with his brother. As if he'd heard something, he nodded. I understand. Per your habit, and the habit of your Eagle tribe, you'd want to tear them apart alive. I understand. Little Eagle, 4th elder brother will help you vent your anger right away. I'll help you get your revenge. Big Bear smiled and stood up. As he turned around, his eyes blazed dangerously. Stretching out his hand, he grabbed a heavily trembling strange race's elite. Without saying anything, he held the frenzy blade enduring earth down, and pinched one of his fingers. Then, using a bit of strength, he pulled slowly, extending the finger, until finally, it was completely ripped off his hand. A terrible cry rang out, filling the entire area. The strange race's elite's cultivation had already been crippled earlier, and faced with the cruel treatment from Big Bear now, he completely did not have the ability to fight back at all. In fact, even seeking death right now would be a kind of luxurious wish. He could not even faint since the moment he fainted, Big Bear would instantly infuse a wisp of Xian Qi into his mind to wake him up again, ensuring that he would feel every bit of pain with a clear mind. There were only endless wretched screams and curses. Big Bear remained unmoved as he reached for another finger and pulled. Smiling lightly as if reminiscing about something, he mumbled. Little Eagle, do you remember what you asked back when we were drinking the wine we stole from Monkey King? When will we be able to reach the peak? As he laughed, the miserably screaming bastard's finger was ripped off with a loud pop. I still remember that I replied. We'll definitely be able to reach that level one day. And then, you laughed aloud and shook your head. To steal that wine, your head was even scratched by a monkey subordinate under the Monkey King, causing you to bleed. How embarrassing! Ah! The mighty Eagle King was made to bleed by a mere monkey lad. As the memories came flooding back, he smiled happily, as if the Eagle King was still sitting across him, drinking the stolen monkey wine with blood flowing from his forehead. Just like that, as he reminisced about the past, he slowly tore the 5 frenzy blade enduring earths who harmed the Eagle King into tiny pieces. After that, he stood up and walked over, sitting beside the Eagle King as he sighed in a heavy voice. Little Eagle, older brother has already gotten revenge for you. Why aren't you waking up? Why aren't you still waking up? Fourth brother will never quarrel with you again in the future. You can scold me as you wish. All right? Come on. Sit up. Sit up, ah. Little Eagle. Little Eagle. Just wake up. Fourth brother will promise you right now, I'll never fight over anything with you in the future. You can drink the monkey wine first. Fourth brother will also give you the wine that brother-in-law gave me. Get up, quickly get up, ah. All of a sudden, Big Bear stopped coaxing and buried his face into the ground as he howled painfully. What do you want me to do for you to wake up? Tell me. Tell me, ah. I'll agree to it all. Okay? But why aren't you waking up? Several bear warriors ran over with tears on their faces as they knelt down and begged. My king, please be consoled in your grief. Lord Eagle King has already passed into the eternal. May our king, please restrain your grief and accept fate. These few sentences were said with choked voices, but they still ended with tears all over their faces. Big Bear instantly flew into a rage as he jumped up. Sending out a foot, he kicked away the bear that spoke and roared. What motherfucking nonsense are you speaking? What? Passed into the eternal? Bastard thing. My brother isn't dead. He isn't dead. He isn't dead. My brother will never die. Big Bear roared as tears of blood streamed down his face. He will never die. Following that, a mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth, and his huge body collapsed with a loud boom. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1175. Where did my brothers go? Far off in the horizon, 2 white shadows streaked across the sky like a pair of meteors, reaching a shocking speed. For some reason, Mei Shuayan had been feeling an extreme feeling of unease since some time ago. Truthfully, Mei Shuayan had always felt anxious ever since the Bear King, Eagle King, and the 8 great Saint Venerable Seniors had set off. The only thing was that Jun Moxie had delivered her into the Hongjun Pagoda from the very first moment, and she was cut off from all news in the outside world. Mei Shuayan also knew how serious the matter was and remained inside to calm her heart and cultivate, maintaining her heart at the peak state to better deal with matters later. After that, they coincidentally bumped into the experts of the Heaven Saint Palace chasing after Zhan Luan Hui, and the both of them also joined in the fight. Mei Shuayan hadn't truly shown herself in the battle, but her help was definitely not to be slighted. And because they were focused on the fight, she hadn't thought about anything else, maintaining a clear heart. However, after the large battle, she actually felt no joy in defeating such a peerless expert. In fact, the anxious feeling were only becoming more and more intense. After separating from Gu Han and the rest who went to look for the remnants of the 3 holy lands, Mei Shuayan urged Jun Moxie to rush towards the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. There wasn't any delays at all. Jun Moxie did not even have the time to catch a breath or drink a sip of water before being rushed to fly all the way there. The area that the Pillar of Heaven's mountains had collapsed was incredibly huge, and the rubble could already be seen far away. For some reason, the closer she got to the pillar of heaven's mountains, the more uneasy Mei Shuayan felt. It was an indescribable sense of sorrow and pain, and she felt extremely urgent, but also fearful, actually making her somewhat not dare to enter that area. This was an extremely strange state of heart, and even Mei Shuayan herself didn't know what was going on. There were clearly many brothers in front of her, and many seniors waiting for her to reinforce them. But yet, she had a strange feeling that that place held countless pain and heartache. It's as if what awaited her in front would end up delivering her a heavy blow. As they approached their destination, Mei Shuayan's body softened, and she could hardly maintain her flying stance. What's wrong? Jun Moxie looked at her with confusion. At this time, Mei Shuayan's jade-like face had turned scarily white. There wasn't any color of blood, and her lips was also trembling lightly. Could she have overexhausted herself when we fought against Zhang Luanhui? Still, it shouldn't be to this extent, right? My body's fine. However, my heart aches terribly, and I don't know what happened. Mei Shuayan shook her head and furrowed her brows. There's an ominous feeling which I cannot shake off. Could it be my own groundless fears? The usually steadfast Mei Shuayan actually asked this question in her anxiousness. She was hoping that Jun Moxie could give her a definite answer, and the support of a lover she could rely on. Jun Moxie sucked in a deep breath of air and said, "How can uncertain feelings like this be indicative of anything?" Truthfully, Jun Moxie also felt a lurch in his heart when he said this. From the moment he entered the area around the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, he too had this uneasy feeling that Mei Shuayan spoke about. But because he didn't want Mei Shuayan to worry, he didn't say anything. This was a kind of sixth sense, something that an assassin could train to possess after encountering hundreds of dangerous situations. Usually, this kind of feelings signaled that something had happened. Jun Moxie could basically guess that something huge must have happened on the Eagle and Bear army's side. Right now, he was also extremely anxious. However, he did not dare to express it in front of Mei Shuayan. Not even a little bit. If he also displayed this kind of anxiousness, Mei Shuayan might collapse even before they reached the Eagle King, Bear King, and 8 great Saint Venerable Seniors. Just what kind of people were they? They were all the closest people to Mei Shuayan. Especially Eagle King and Bear King. They were brothers that Mei Shuayan had known for many years. This kind of feelings were even closer than blood brothers and sisters, even surpassing the relationship between twins. If anything happened to them, the blow to Mei Shuayan would be extremely heavy. As a man, he needed to be a pillar for his woman to lean on. Although Jun Moxie was also extremely anxious right now, he had to pretend that nothing was wrong on the surface, and try to comfort Mei Shuayan. This was a man's responsibility. But faced with the sudden question, Jun Moxie knew that he could not give her too much illusory hope. Otherwise, it would instead become a bigger burden for her. It was better that she suffer a great pain for a moment, than to be in pain for her entire life. Shuayan, your condition is not ideal right now. Why don't you go into the pagoda for a rest? And I'll carry you there. Jun Moxie suggested carefully. If Mei Shuayan was willing to go in, then everything will become easier. The Hongjun Pagoda was separated from the outside world, and if anything bad had really happened, the impact on her would not be as great as if she was present on the scene. He could let her know the truth at some point later in the future, and it would dull the pain for her. This was the best solution in a situation where there were no good solutions. No. Mei Shuayan rejected flatly. I want to go and see my brothers. and I want my Tian Fa brothers to be able to see me with the first glance. I am their elder sister, and no matter what happens, I will be there to hold it for them." As she said that, she gritted her teeth and increased her speed. This speed now had already far surpassed her normal fastest. Jun Moxie sighed and followed behind her. Although he knew that Mei Shuayan would only end up doing herself more harm like this, he didn't have any ways to stop her. Yes, it is true that you as their elder sister can help them to hold up many things, but in this world, there are always some things that nobody can support. Not even you. There are some matters that one must face, and there's no escaping it. Right now, Jun Moxie could only pray silently in his heart, hoping that this blow will not be too heavy, or that this matter was not as serious as they'd imagined yet. After all, the volcanoes were still erupting, and the probability of the strange races coming out at this time is not necessarily very large. Right now, this was the only way that the evil monarch Jun Moxie could comfort himself. Without saying anything, both of them increased their speed. There was clearly still a large distance until they reached, but the thick smell of blood could already be detected. One had to know that the wind level now could be considered as a grade 9 hurricane. Furthermore, both of them were flying upwind and was practically being pushed forward by the wind. But despite all this, they could still smell the heavy, pungent, bloody smell. Mei Shuayan's expression turned even more grave as she gritted her teeth and flew forward with all her might. All of a sudden, she froze in midair as she looked helplessly into the distance. Then, she cried aloud. "Little eagle." Jun Moxie also looked up, and his pupils instantly shrunk as his lips trembled. A cloud of blood rose into the air from the far distance, congealing into a magnificent eagle that covered the sky. The metallic wings, sharp beak, and deadly talons framed a pair of incredibly proud eyes. Turning around, the eagle flew towards the edge of the sky. In the blink of an eye, it had already disappeared into the thick clouds. Mei Shuayan raised her head and looked dumbly at the giant blood eagle. Then, she cried out in a heart-rending manner and trembled fiercely, almost falling out of the sky. Righting herself immediately, she shot out like an arrow, flying forward with all her might. Her speed had actually reached an unimaginable level. Jun Moxie's face also turned green instantly, and his eyes became as red as blood. The Eagle King has passed? His body flashed, and he unleashed the yin-yang escape to its full power as he chased after her. In the huge battlefield, the bloody and chaotic battle had finally come to an end. Silence. Plumes of smoke rose up everywhere, and countless body parts littered the ground. Severed heads rolled about on the ground, stirred by the fierce winds, their eyes still wide, etched with the looks of fear and hatred that their owners experienced only moments ago. A suffocating smell of blood so thick it threatened to choke the lungs of the living hung heavily in the air. This was no longer just an ordinary battlefield. This was more reminiscent of a battle between gods and devils, heralding an apocalypse. The Bear Tribe warriors, no more than 1,000 of them, had formed a large circle as they knelt down towards the center. They were guarding their king who had fallen into an unconscious state from grief, and they were guarding the Eagle King who had sacrificed himself, showing him the highest respect and honor. No one howled, and no one cried. A mist of blood hung heavily on the battlefield, but it was entirely silent, like the realms of ghosts and spirits. This was a silence that was difficult to describe with words, and was so suffocating that it was hard to breathe. The heaviness of this pressure seemed to want to crush the hearts of men. Suddenly, a shrill cry rang out from the air. All the bear tribe warriors raised their heads together as they looked towards the source of the sound in an instant. Their eyes were filled with great emotion. That was Elder Sister's voice. Elder Sister is here. A white shadow flashed, and Mei Shuayan descended from the sky like a meteor. The air pressure from her landing caused even the large rocks on the ground to fly into the sky. When she landed, even with Mei Shuayan's cultivation, she still stumbled a few steps. However, she did not slow down at all as she ran towards the group of bears. She was running too quickly, to the point where even the scarf she wore on her head was blown away. Her beautiful long hair floated in the wind, but she hadn't even realized it. When she reached the group, she suddenly stopped. There was no other reason. She was afraid. She was scared that she would see something that she was not willing to see. The bear tribe warriors looked silently at her, and even these normally slow-witted bears completely understood what she felt in that moment. All of their eyes welled up with tears, but they didn't speak. Mei Shuayan's heart also dropped instantly into an endless abyss, sinking deeper and deeper. Clear the path. Mei Shuayan's voice trembled heavily, and her body shook visibly. Tell me, what the hell happened here? Where are the other brothers? Where are the Eagle Tribe brothers? And where are the 8 seniors? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1176. Broken-hearted. All the members of the bear clan knelt on the ground, raising their heads to look at Mei Shuayan, but no one answered. Everyone hung their heads low at the same time. Uncontrollable sobbing could be heard from someone's throat. All 6,000 brothers. Why are there so few of you left? Tell me, where are the rest go? Did they go to search for the enemy? Mei Shuayan looked at all these brothers who were covered in injuries and confusion, mumbling some reason that even she herself wouldn't believe in. But still, no one responded. Mei Shuayan suddenly yelled mournfully. Why are you not answering me? Where are the rest? Where did they go? Ha! Where's Eagle King? Where's Bear King? Where did the 2 of you preposterous fools die off to? Talk ah! Answer me ah! Mei Shuayan no longer had her usual calmness. None of that air of the Lord of Tianfa. She was practically on the verge of hysteria. A figure flashed and Jun Moxie landed beside Mei Shuayan, his face colorless. The warriors remained silent, but they opened up a path uniformly. Jun Moxie moved and stood right in front of Mei Shuayan, blocking her view. He calmly looked at Mei Shuayan and said with a trembling voice, Shuayan, move aside. Mei Shuayan raised her head angrily. It was as if fire was about to spew from her beautiful eyes. Jun Moxie, move aside. Seeing how Jun Moxie showed no intentions to move, looking at her with a tender and pitying look, Mei Shuayan was completely enraged. Move aside, she shrieked. The sweet-tempered, calm Mei Shuayan, right now, had all the intentions to start a fight if there were any disagreements. I want to go and see my brother. No one can stop me. Jun Moxie sighed inwardly, lowering his head. But he still remained unbudging. If Shuayan can vent it all on my body, then just vent it on me. Mei Shuayan was stunned for a moment. Then, she suddenly flew past Jun Moxie at high speed. Then, a heart-shattering cry of grief could be heard from behind Jun Moxie. Ah! Mei Shuayan cried into the skies. All the qi from her body suddenly burst from her body. Her grief-stricken, Mournful cries were so sorrowful that everyone who heard her voice was affected by the grief she was undergoing. Even if they did not know what had happened, they could clearly feel how it was like to have their hearts shattered. In the center of the circle, Eagle King's badly damaged body lay silently on the ground. Beside him, Bear King was covered in fresh blood, the corner of his lip stained with his own. He laid right beside Eagle King. The only difference was that there was completely no vital signs from Eagle King's body, whereas Bear King was still breathing weakly. Mei Shuiyan's sorrowful cry caused Big Bear, who had fallen into a semi-conscious state due to extreme grief, to suddenly jerk awake. The moment he woke up, he suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood. But he leapt up and looked about with a frantic look. Big sis! Big sis is here! Hurry! Hurry! Save little eagle! Hurry! Save little eagle! He implored incoherently in a frenzy. Mei Shuiyan was right before him, but it was as if she didn't see him. Little eagle! It was as if Mei Shuiyan was struck by lightning. Her petite frame began to tremble violently. Tears began to flow from her eyes, along her fair cheeks, and down. She walked over slowly, gently, her movements unusually gentle and slow, as if she were afraid that she would disturb her little brother's deep sleep. Step by step. It was merely a couple of steps, but it took all of Mei Shuiyan's strength to finally arrive beside Eagle King. She slowly squatted down, her trembling finger gently stroking Eagle King's cold cheek. She mumbled, "Little eagle. Big sis is here. Big sis is here to see you already. Don't be afraid. Big sis is here. Don't be afraid." Mei Shuiyan stretched out her hands, gradually picking up Eagle King's body, which had already turned cold, into her arms, hugging him tightly. "Little brother, why are you always so mischievous? The ground is so cold, so dirty. Isn't it uncomfortable lying on it? Hurry, get up. Big sis will carry you." Her pristine white robes were instantly stained with blood. Eagle King's body was huge. Mei Shuiyan had carried him into her embrace, but both his legs were still dragging on the ground. She carried him and walked forward in a daze. "Little eagle. Brother. Big sis will bring you home. Bring you home. Don't be afraid. Be good." She suddenly stumbled, but she stubbornly regained her balance, using all her strength to keep the body in her hands balanced. A flush covered her face, and a mouthful of blood burst out from her mouth. She had just raised her foot to take another step when both her legs gave way. She crumbled to the ground, her eyes shut. She had fainted. Although Mei Shuiyan had fainted, her hands remained hugging onto her brother's body tightly, refusing to let go. There was a common saying that a sister was like a mother. In the family of Tian Fa, as the big sister, Mei Shuiyan was like the mother of all the other beast kings and possibly even more. All these brothers were younger than her. Mei Shuiyan had brought them up from young, and every step in their growth had taken Mei Shuiyan great effort. From a fledgling to a king of the sky, Mei Shuiyan had witnessed their entire life. Every time they fell, Mei Shuiyan picked them up again. Every success, Mei Shuiyan was celebrating their joy. Every single achievement came from Mei Shuiyan's devoted guidance. And whenever these brothers had anything sad or joyous to share, the first person they would think of finding was this elder sister. Yet today, Eagle King laid in Mei Shuiyan's arms, completely cold and stiff, unable to hear the callings of the big sister that he admired the most ever again. Mei Shuiyan felt as if her heart was being ripped into shreds, shattering into pieces. After a long while, Mei Shuayan regained consciousness and realized that she was leaning against Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie gazed at her, his deep eyes filled with heartache and tenderness. But his murderous aura was oozing out. Big sis! Big sis! Big Bear cried, throwing himself before Mei Shuayan and kowtowing crazily. Big sis! Please kill me. I don't want to live anymore. I really don't want to live anymore. Little Eagle. Ninth brother. Ninth brother had died because he was saving me. I did not protect Nine brother properly and even became a burden to him. I deserve to die. The one who should die is me. Why didn't I die instead? Bear King's entire body was convulsing. He suddenly knelt uprightly and slapped himself. I'll beat you to death. I'll beat you to death. You wretched bear. You've caused my ninth brother to die. My ninth brother. He used so much strength that it didn't take long for his head to become a bloody mess. Mei Shuayan stared at the skies lifelessly, a blank look in her eyes. After a long while, she finally lowered her head and her pupils began to focus again. She looked at the Eagle King in her arms fondly and couldn't help the hot tears flowing down. Then she lifted her head and looked at Bear King, her voice still trembling, but unusually resolute. Stand up. Big Bear continued to sob, as if he no longer had any bones in his body. A real man sheds blood and not tears. Stand up. Stand up like a real man. Big Bear, don't make me look down on you. Tears were still flowing down Mei Shuayan's cheeks, but her voice had regained its calmness. You said earlier, ninth brother had died while saving you. Then I don't wish that the person he died saving to be a spineless coward like you right now. Then I'll find it wasted for him. Mei Shuayan ordered. Big Bear, stand up this instant. This harsh order had caused the ground beneath everyone's feet to quake. Big Bear's body jerked and he shot to his feet, standing upright. Mei Shuayan glared at him with bloodshot eyes and said in a low voice, Ninth brother died. He died for you. What do you do? Tell me. Big Bear gritted his teeth and responded without thinking. If I die in this battle, naturally I will reunite with ninth brother. Even if I manage to survive by a stroke of luck, I'll go and find him after the war is over. Even in the netherworlds, I, Big Bear, am still the fourth brother to ninth brother. As it will be forever. Ha! Mei Shuayan was so furious that her entire body trembled. First, she gave him a tight slap, sending him spinning. But it wasn't enough to vent her anger, so she gave him a heavy kick to his chest. Then, Big Bear's burly body went shooting out and landing heavily on the ground. Good. Excellent. Big Bear, you're good. Truly good. Mei Shuayan's voice quaked as she nodded her head heavily. Ninth brother saved your life by staking his own. It turns out that it was all for you to commit suicide to join him. Ha! Big Bear, you're capable. You're truly capable. You're truly loyal to your brother. I respect you. She continued to rain punches and kicks with every sentence she said, leaving Big Bear rolling about on the ground, fresh blood spurting out of his mouth. But Mei Shuayan did not show any mercy. Every single blow was merciless. Even Jun Moxie turned away from the sight. He had never seen Mei Shuayan throw such a huge temper. But the current situation was one that Jun Moxie mustn't interrupt, one he could not even mediate. Finally, Mei Shuayan picked Big Bear by the chest and threw him onto the ground. And she dragged him like she was dragging a dead dog over to Eagle King's body. She let go and snapped harshly. You ask, little eagle. Ask ninth brother. Why did he save you? Why did he save you even if it meant staking his own life? Big bear. Your life was exchanged by ninth brother with his own. You ask him. If he is willing to have you die. Is your life still your own? Do you have the right to decide? Big Bear looked at Eagle King's face and sobbed. Before being stunned. If you think that you didn't let ninth brother down by dying, then you can die now. Mei Shuayan glared at him. I will definitely not stop you. Clang. She threw a saber in front of Bear King. Big Bear suddenly raised his head. A fervent look in his eyes as he looked at this shiny blade. His eyes gleamed. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1177. Brothers are always around. Die ah. Go and die. Die ah. Why aren't you dying? Ah. Mei Shuayan looked at him coldly. Despite her body trembling and tears streaming endlessly down, she spoke resolutely. Why are you not dying yet? Could it be that you don't have the balls to? You want me to send you on your way? No problem. Just tell me. I don't care for a bullshit brother like you. Right now, Jun Moxie was a little anxious. Shuayan's words were getting too much. Big Bear had such a candid temper. He would die for the sake of his brother if he was told to. If he really did. I don't want to die anymore. Big Bear suddenly calmed down. He got up slowly. His eyes completely calm. You're not going to die anymore? Mei Shuayan looked at him and said emotionlessly. So now you decide not to die. Are you planning to do something in the battle? N? Is it to die for the sake of saving Crane King? Then Crane King will die for the sake of saving Tiger King. Then Tiger King will die then the last one will die for the sake of saving me. Then I'll commit suicide. Then we will die. And be reunited again in the Yellow Springs. How great is that ah? Were you thinking of this? Big Bear's body jolted. He looked pleadingly at Mei Shuayan and cried. Big sis. I beg you. Don't say that. I feel horrible. I feel horrible. Ah. Please stop saying any more. Indeed. Mei Shuayan had completely figured out what Bear King was planning. Of course he didn't wish for everyone to die, but he already was wishing for death. From the moment Eagle King died for the sake of saving Bear King, Big Bear already had no lingering attachments for the world. At that moment, he already didn't want to live anymore. But he couldn't die at that point in time. Furthermore, Bear King was still worried for his own brothers. So he decided to work even harder in the next battle. Staking all of himself to protect his brothers so they would be able to live on. No matter what the price. Just like what Eagle King had done for him. Then, if he could die for the sake of saving his brother, then he would also be able to die in peace. Not letting the sworn brotherhood of Tian Fa down in vain. But when Mei Shuayan put it in this way, Big Bear suddenly felt the chills. Fear and panic growing in him. Indeed, he was already so heartbroken from Eagle King's death from saving himself. Then, if he had died for the other brothers, wouldn't they be feeling the same as himself right now? Would rather die than continue living? Everyone would understand the same thing when they put themselves in somebody else's shoes. Then, could it really be like what Big Sis said? Everyone dies? And we all reunite in the Yellow Springs? No. I do not wish for that. It absolutely mustn't be like that. But If my own brother is in danger, am I supposed to just watch on? No. I can't even do that. How can I do that? Bear King was feeling so conflicted that he did not even know what to say. There has never been any exchange between brothers. Jun Moxie said. Eagle King sacrificed himself for you. His intentions were definitely not for you to return the favor. Don't tell me that in your heart. Doing things for your brothers isn't something you should do. You should. Get it? That's what makes you brothers. Your brother. Doing things for you is what he should do. Relatively, doing things for your brother, no matter what it is something that should be expected. Jun Moxie said. Pain and hurt are inevitable. But for the sake of ensuring your safety, even if it is death, Eagle King did it willingly. What you should really do is absolutely not die for your brother, but live more for his sake. Do more things on their behalf. If one day, you die for the sake of saving your brother, although we will be filled with grief, we will also be happy for you. Because you left in a heroic manner. With a peace of mind. With no qualms. Just like Little Eagle right now. Jun Moxie spoke solemnly. We must let our brothers feel proud because we are living unhappily. Even if they've passed. We must make our brothers smile from the Yellow Springs. Yes. I should. I am willing to do anything for my brother. I'm not afraid of death. But I'm afraid that my brother will be disappointed. Big Bear turned his head and glanced at Eagle King. But Ninth is gone forever. Ninth is not gone. Brothers will forever remain in our hearts. Jun Moxie took in a deep breath. Until the day you die of old age. Your brother, be it Eagle King, your big sis, me, or any of the other brothers who are not present here, we will always accompany you. Even if they've already passed, they still exist in your heart. Always accompanying you. As long as you are still alive, your heart remains, and your brothers are around. I understand now. Bear King couldn't help but wipe his tears as he sobbed. I'm still alive. My heart remains. My brothers are around. Little Eagle is around. That's right. So you must continue to live on properly. For Eagle King. Because his greatest wish before he died was for you to live. He only wants you to continue living properly. You must not disappoint him. And the rest of the Eagle clan also needs your support. You must not die. If you die so wimpishly, then you'll really have let Little Eagle down. Big Bear stayed silent, but his dull eyes finally regained a little bit of life. And one more thing. The blood of our brothers mustn't be spilled in vain. Whoever makes us bleed, we will make them doomed. Jun Moxie said harshly. Big Bear. You must prepare. We must get it all back with both principal and interest. Multiple folds. Yes. How can the blood of my brothers be spilled in vain? It will not be, no matter what. Make those grotesque scum extinct. A vengeful gleam filled Big Bear's eyes. Then, he suddenly turned around, running about, searching all over, collecting all of the bits of Eagle King's flesh that was scattered all about carefully. And Mei Shuayan was doing the same thing. All the other bear warriors were also searching about. They wanted to restore the body of their brother who had already left, so that their brother could finish his last journey honorably. Finally, they finished collecting all of it. Mei Shuayan tugged a lock of hair from her head. Then, she got Jun Moxie to use the power of gold to create a needle. She carefully threaded it, and began to sew her brother back together, stitching every single piece of flesh and feathers. She was just that concentrated. Every single stitch was so gentle and with great familiarity. Just like how she had used a needle and thread to help sew Eagle King's clothes from that time when Eagle King first took human form and accidentally torn the clothes he wore for the first time. She could still remember Little Eagle wrinkling his face, feeling upset about the clothes. She could still remember. She even chuckled and pinched his hooked nose, teasing him. Now, the situation was similar, but she was feeling such heavy sorrow. As she sewed, Mei Shuayan asked in a low voice. That blood eagle that appeared in the sky earlier, was it the tabooed ultimate move of the Eagle clan? 9 Firmaments bloodshed cry of the eagles. Burning sky collapsing earth Xian eagle soul? Big Bear sniffed and nodded his head heavily. Then, the 8 seniors? Big Bear turned his head away, not speaking, his tears pouring down. At this moment, that humongous build looked like a fallen leaf in the wind. Then, their bodies? Mei Shuayan's heart sank, asking in a low voice. Detonated, they all detonated. Big Bear replied in a nasal voice. He squatted down, hugging his head with both his hands to suppress his sobs. Mei Shuayan's hand jerked to a stop. She raised her head, remaining silent, before lowering it to continue her work. Although she did not make a single noise, but tears were falling down silently, landing on Eagle King's cold body. Mei Shuayan had clearly become numb from the heartache. Her hands continued to move automatically. She didn't want to think. She couldn't bear to think. And didn't dare to think anymore. Her long silky hair fell down, blocking her face, and also the immense sorrow that she was going through. Enduring all of it alone. Jun Moxie let out a long sigh, standing up with his hands behind his back. With all of his intelligence, he also didn't know how to console her at this moment. The strong winds continued to blow. Jun Moxie's robes and wind fluttered in the wind. In his worry, he also felt an extreme sense of grief and melancholy. Brother, the few brothers that he acknowledged in this world. Now, one of them had died in battle, right before him. Will there still be more, later? Mei Shuayan may have regained consciousness quickly, but Jun Moxie knew clearly that Mei Shuayan's heart was completely broken. Right now, Mei Shuayan was just forcibly controlling herself. As the Lord of Tianfa, she did not have the right to lose her self-control before her subordinates. No matter when, she must remain unruffled. Only in this way, she can give her subordinates confidence. She had already vomited blood and fainted from extreme grief. The mental pressure on the warriors was already massive. Now, Mei Shuayan could not lose her composure. If she wished to weep, she could only wait till the silence of night to let her tears fall, all alone, secretly. But the next morning, she was still the Lord of Tianfa when she stood before everyone else. Mighty, powerful, invincible. Jun Moxie's heart hurt. So much that he couldn't breathe. He had always treasured every single brother from Tianfa. Not only the few Beast King brothers. Jun Moxie felt more close and dear with even the ordinary Xian beasts than humans. The honest Xian beasts. The Xian beasts with the purest hearts. Were a lot more worth befriending than humans. The death of the Eagle King also left Jun Moxie so heartbroken he blacked out for a moment. But Mei Shuayan had just fainted. Jun Moxie knew that he must not lose the tiniest bit of his self-control. If both of them became overwhelmed by grief at the same time, the bear warriors would definitely be in a mess. And they would completely lose control of the situation. If that really became the case, it'd really be a huge mess. even if they managed to make it up. The hearts of the men were unstable. And fighting with this sort of mentality, they would be in danger of annihilation at any moment. Because of the weakness of their kings, they couldn't see any hope of victory. Standing in the wind, watching the battlefield that was filled with the stench of blood, although Jun Moxie was hard-hearted, he asked himself a question. Was it worth it? Was it worth it? This was undoubtedly a question that was very difficult to answer. Although he had claimed to not care about the common lives of the world, and Xian continent had nothing to do with him, he was not a hero. But, even though he said that he didn't care, how could he really not? After all, his own brothers were still on this continent. And his own kin, friends, and people he worried about. How could he really not care? He may perhaps not be so concerned with the people of the Xian continent, but how could he allow those grotesque strange races to come into the continent as they wished? But if he really did not let them come in, the evil monarch manor and Xian beasts will have to pay a hefty price for it. Especially with the unexpected mishap on the three Holy Lands forces. A price like this Jun Moxie could not afford it. And he couldn't bear to. And was unwilling to. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1178. Fury. Before this, Jun Moxie had already overestimated the strange races to be the worst imaginable. But he still did not imagine that this battle would be this dreadful. The moment the war began, Tianfa lost 8 Saint Venerables, an Eagle King, 3,000 Eagle Warriors and 2,000 Bear Warriors. In just over 4 hours. It was such a hefty price. In terms of strength, all of the soldiers had a heaven reversal pill that would allow them to recover from any sort of injury. In other words, that was an extra life. But ultimately, not even a sixth of the men remained. Then, how much time could they stall, even if the entire Tianfa forest deployed their elites? Since the strange races were this powerful, then how did the 3 holy and 1 ferocious lands manage to win all the previous war for seizing the heavens? Jun Moxie had stimulated his plans using the previous war for seizing the heavens as reference. Saints would be able to partake in the war for seizing the heavens. Saint Emperors were the main power for winning. The Saint Venerables were the high-level forces. Jun Moxie had understood it this way for the whole time. But from the looks of it, it seemed as if there wasn't a flaw in his comprehension. But from what Gu Han and the rest said, it seemed to be this case. At most, there will be another battle between those of the higher levels. But there will definitely not be more than a few people. Shuayan. Where is the old battleground of the war for seizing the heavens? Jun Moxie asked. It is southwest of here. About 1,000 li. Mei Shuayan had already finished restitching Eagle King's body. Eagle King's feathers were neatly attached to his body again. He looked mighty and bold, as he were alive. Mei Shuayan stood in a daze and answered subconsciously. There is someone from the Holy Land standing guard? Jun Moxie raised his brow. How can there be no one guarding it? For all of history, all the strongest forwards from the Heaven Saint Palace of the 3 Holy Lands have been guarding there. For 10,000 years, they had never lost defense of the place. And there are people guarding there? An incisive glint flashed in Jun Moxie's eyes. Since there are experts guarding that place, why are they not here yet when this entire place has been overturned? The incident here is no ordinary incident. It is the collapse of Pillar of Heaven's mountain that separates the 2 continents. And, where are they now? Jun Moxie slowly raised his head and looked afar. Using an unusually cold tone, he said, "The collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains had a tremendous impact. Even spirit xians and saints will be injured in the face of the might of nature such as this. But it definitely will not be able to harm a saint emperor or saint venerable. Since this is such an important location, the experts who are standing guard must be of saint cultivation at least. Since they're not dead, there's no way they will not know of this incident. The strange races are surging in waves. So how could they not see it? But why have they not arrived yet?" Jun Moxie sounded extremely apathetic when he said this. But Mei Shuayan and even Bear King, who were more slow-witted, could clearly sense that bone-chilling intention in Jun Moxie's tone. In both of Jun Moxie's lives, he had never suffered such a disastrous loss. After this battle, this first troop of soldiers had lost above 80% of their men, of which included Tianfa's Beast King Eagle King, the 8 Saint Venerable Seniors of Tianfa, and all the elite experts of the Eagle clan. Even those who managed to survive from the Bear clan were heavily injured and not in a condition to fight. Such a disastrous loss. So many brothers passing. How could Jun Moxie not grieve? If Mei Shuayan was heartbroken, Jun Moxie may be even more severe. At least, Mei Shuayan could weep secretly when she was alone with him and have young Master Jun consoling her. But Jun Moxie could only bury all of the pain and grief at the bottom of his heart, and not even speak to anyone about it. Because he was a man. And a leader. Honestly speaking, though Tianfa had many sacrifices in this battle, the battle results were extremely glorious. With a loss of 5,000 over men, they annihilated the enemy's troops that was more than 20 times their size. This included 13 supremacy enduring heavens, which was considered supreme amongst the strange races. The Xian continent had never obtained such battle results in all of history. A glorious result like this was not only unprecedented, it would definitely be unrivaled. Yet no matter how glorious the battle results were, it was not what young Master Jun desired. Even if the results were better, it would not be able to return the lives of his men. Jun Moxie was someone who was extremely protective of his men. In his heart, even if it was all the members of strange races combined, they couldn't compare to how important one Tianfa brother of his was. Jun Moxie always understood that war was filled with sacrifices. As long as there was a war, there would be sacrifices. But he didn't wish for these sacrifices to befall his own men, which was why he strengthened Tianfa Xian beasts at all costs, and even ensured everyone had a heaven-defying pill like the Heaven Reversal Pill. But it still couldn't avoid sacrifices. The sorrow and grief in Jun Moxie's heart could be imagined. But he didn't have anyone to vent it on. All the strange races have escaped, and this matter could not be implicate the Heaven Saint Palace, the 3 Holy Lands. But now, Jun Moxie unexpectedly found out that it turned out there was someone else who was in charge of guarding the place. And there was a considerable number of powerful experts. Jun Moxie suddenly felt furious. Extremely furious. After the battle with Zhang Luanhui earlier and getting an understanding of the strength of the 3 Holy Lands, he was still contemplating strength. But right now, there was no need for consideration. The enemy's strength did not need to be taken into account. They just had to kill. They'd be able to find out sooner or later. No matter whether the enemy was strong or weak, they'd definitely have to wipe them all out. Since it was destined for only one side to remain, then it didn't matter whether they're strong or weak. Yet, upon finding out that Pillar of Heaven's mountains had experts guarding it, who were powerful enough to participate in the battle, but ultimately not appear, this result completely enraged Jun Moxie. He was filled with fury. The Tianfa troops had pretty much been wiped out. And under such a dreadful situation, those people did not show their assistance. If they had assisted, would the 8 Tianfa Saint Venerable Seniors die like this? Would Eagle King and all the members of the Eagle clan be sacrificed? When Jun Moxie said this, Mei Shuayan stopped breathing and an unconcealable look of hatred and vengeance shot from her eyes. Due to her extreme grief earlier, she didn't think so much. But upon Jun Moxie's reminder, Mei Shuayan only felt as if a heavenly tribulation had suddenly arrived and struck her on her head. Her heart suddenly felt like it's about to burst. Why? Tianfa has given their all to help you fight the strange races. Since the moment the incident at Pillar of Heaven's mountains happened, we deployed our troops and rushed to the battlefield. All these was for the continent. For you. But, why? Our men had rushed here and began to fight off the strange races, but were almost wiped out. And all of you that were not far away ultimately did not intervene to assist them. Even until now, not a single one of you appeared. Why? Could it be that even at a time like this, you still chose to watch from the sidelines? Watch in safety and wait to reap the benefits? Did you really think we are idiots? Darn! Mei Shuayan hissed through gritted teeth. All the killing intent she had accumulated could no longer be suppressed. You may not have killed us directly, but my brothers have died directly in your hands as a result. Bastards like these are even more detestable than those invasive strange races. This enmity is irreconcilable. Jun Moxie also scoffed murderously, but no longer spoke. He took out the best medicine for those bear warriors who managed to survive and began to treat their injuries. A loud whistle came from the skies. From afar, it was like a huge cloud arriving. The second wave of troops. Solitary Eagle and Feng Wan Yun, along with the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer and 300 Xian cranes had finally arrived. An hour earlier than expected. Jun Moxie's face stiffened. At night, Tianfa and the evil Monarch Manor's troops set up their camps about 30 li from the battlefield. But no one went to sleep. But no one cried. The entire camp was frighteningly silent. The heavy atmosphere made it hard to breathe. In the wee hours, Crane King and Tiger King arrived and brought the third wave of men. In the silent night of the campsite, Crane King's sorrowful cry rang out suddenly. Mei Shuayan did not sleep for the entire night. She didn't even change her posture. She just sat before the body of Eagle King in the tent, for an entire night, silently. It was Tianfa's usual practice to have a close elder keep watch for the first night beside the coffin. Mei Shuayan was the elder sister that Eagle King held in admiration. She was definitely the first choice. But she was also the lord of Tianfa. Tianfa's rules forbid lords from keeping watch for their people. Even if it was their own brother, a beast king of Tianfa. The strongest was the king of the Xian beasts of Tianfa. But in all of history, the most powerful lord could not keep watch for any of his people. But Mei Shuayan completely ignored this rule, silently accompanying her brother through this last night, sending him off. The memorial tablets of the 8 Saint Venerables and 3,000 eagle warriors were neatly arranged, like the Xian eagles in their formations. Jun Moxie, Mei Shuayan, Crane King Long Crane, Bear King Big Bear, and Tiger King Earthcracker sat silently, like 5 statues, completely still. The corners of Crane King, Bear King and Tiger King's lips trembled, but they forced themselves to bear with it. They did not say a single word. Because they were afraid. The moment they opened their mouths, they'd be unable to hold back their cries. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1179. My brothers must not die for nothing. This was a night that was filled with grief and sorrow, but also one that had no sound of crying. The tears can only flow in their hearts. The sky gradually brightened, lighting up the inside of the tent as well. Mei Shuayan looked at the sun that was rising from the horizon, as if she were extremely reluctant, but she finally took in a deep breath of air and said hoarsely, 8 seniors, Little Eagle, and all the brothers from the Eagle clan. Everyone, farewell. If you have the time, you absolutely must come to Tianfa for a look. We miss you all. No matter in heaven or in the netherworld, you are all our kin. Mei Shuayan got up reluctantly, bowing deeply. 2 drops of tears finally couldn't help but fall to the ground as she bowed. Crane King, Bear King, and Tiger King knelt onto the ground and kowtowed in unison, their suppressed sobs ringing out. All right, don't cry anymore. Let our brothers go with a peace of mind. Jun Moxie bowed deeply. His eyes were red. This is war. As long as there is war, sacrifice and death are inevitable. And this great war had just begun. Perhaps someday, we will go and find them for company. I believe that if that day really comes, we absolutely do not wish to see our brothers so grief-stricken. Yes, sir. The hearts of Tiger King, Bear King, and Crane King may already have been shattered, but there was a resolute look on their faces. Jun Moxie waved his hand and all the ancestral tablets and the body of Eagle King disappeared at the same time. He kept them all into the Hongjun Pagoda. Only there could he ensure that they were kept properly and safe. Mei Shuayan and the rest remained in the empty tent, gazing at the empty space reluctantly. Bear King slowly squatted down and pressed his face on the ground where Eagle King's body was laid, shutting his eyes tightly. The tears of heartache finally couldn't help but pour of his eyes, but he ultimately did not make a single noise, only allowing his entire body to convulse with his crying. Then, Big Bear slowly stood up and walked out without turning back. Everyone, keep an eye on your own men and await my orders anytime. The battle may start again any moment. Jun Moxie took in a long breath of air and said firmly. His expression turned cold. If anyone dares to take actions recklessly on their own before you receive the orders from me or your big sis, you shall be beheaded at the ground where the 3,000 eagle warriors died. Big Bear, Crane King, and Tiger King all jerked. Being beheaded at the place where your brother fought to his death was the most severe form of punishment in Tianfa. Those who were executed in this manner was the equivalent of the humiliation of Tianfa. No one in the entire Tianfa forest would acknowledge this person as their brother. But this was an order that Jun Moxie had no other choice but to give, out of fear that these hot-blooded men would recklessly try to seek revenge for Eagle King. As helpless and unwilling he was, he had no other options. Because only this method could truly restrain all these beast kings whose mind had been burnt by the thought of revenge. After a while, all the beast kings walked out from the tent. A few of the volcanoes not far away had stopped erupting, but thick black smoke continued to spew from them. Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun, along with the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer members, were waiting at the front lines in formation, their alert and cautious eyes focusing on the movement from the other side of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. This night, they had stayed on guard like this for the entire night. Because this night completely belonged to Tianfa Forest. Though Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun did not join the rest in the wake keeping for Eagle King and the 8 Saint Venerables, But they protected them here to ensure that when Tianfa's warriors were releasing their grief and sending their brothers off on their last journey, they would not be disturbed in any way. What is the current situation on the strange race's side? Jun Moxie questioned. Up till now, there have only been small groups assembling, but no major actions from them. Feng Wanyun stood upright like a pole, instantly replying when he heard Jun Moxie's question. Why did so many experts gather in such a short period of time yesterday? Logically speaking, since there has already been such a large-scale crossfire here, the strange races should be sending their support ceaselessly. But why is it so quiet? Something is off. Ah! Jun Moxie furrowed his brows and pondered about the situation. His gaze slowly fell on the mountains in the surrounding, and suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. There were a significant number of volcanoes that stopped erupting already. And the temperatures of the surrounding have already dropped drastically compared to yesterday. The strange races are waiting for all the volcanoes to stop erupting completely. Jun Moxie swallowed his saliva and a chilling look shot from his eyes. He exchanged glances with Mei Shuayan and saw her worry in her eyes. The strange races suffered major losses in the battle yesterday. They must have realized that the enemy was too tough to take by storm, so they changed their tactic. After all, from the sacrifices of the Bear Eagle clans, those who partook in the battle from the strange races yesterday were definitely powerful. The death of the 8 Saint Venerables with not a single survivor Jun Moxie, Mei Shuayan, nor any of the Xian beasts of Tianfa were willing to accept this battle outcome. But it would only be worse for the strange races. A total of 13 supremacy enduring heavens and over 300 frenzy blade enduring earth had been annihilated. Jun Moxie wouldn't believe it if someone told him the strange races were unmoved by a battle like this. Such a powerful lineup obviously had the intentions to take the battle by storm and allow the rest of the troops to come surging in. Right now, a gargantuan number of the strange races had died. A price like it was definitely not one the strange races can afford. Thus, they were probably forced to change their tactics. To not be in a rush to start a battle. Wait until all the volcanoes stopped erupting, and the weather returns to normal. Until the natural environment no longer becomes an additional burden, then make their comeback. And this plan was extremely vicious. Because the pillar of heaven's mountains, the barrier that was impossible for them to pass was gone forever. Without the threat from the volcanoes, the 10,000 li is an entire flat land. When that time came, the strange races could just come charging in any direction and would be able to break past it easily. Even if the Xian continent had an immense number of experts, they will definitely not be able to defend in time. The reason was simple. This battle line was too extensively long. And when the volcanoes completely stopped and the temperature returned to normal, all this will take time. During this period of time, the strange races could take this opportunity to assemble all their troops. Although the Xian continent also had gathered their troops, firstly, the journey had long, and secondly, the Xian continent was still on the defense. The strange races were completely on the offense. They could break in through any location and the Xian continent could only remain on the defense. And this disparity was worlds apart. How should this sort of unfavorable situation be dealt with? Jun Moxie paced up and down, thinking hard but to no avail. Mei Shuayan was also thinking of a solution, her brows in a furrow. After a while, both of them sighed at the same time. It is definitely not ideal to remain on the defense, but to go on the offense. Jun Moxie sighed before continuing. Is also not appropriate. Indeed. That side is the strange race's territory. If we recklessly charge over, we may not be able to find their fatal point. And the moment we go on the offense, we definitely need a lot of men to partake in the battle. And they must all be elites. This way, our defense will become even weaker. The moment the strange races attack, we will not be strong enough. In the long run, it'll be even harder to defend, Mei Shuayan said. Jun Moxie nodded heavily, his complexion turning ugly. Just at this moment, the both of them sensed something and raised their heads to look into the distance. There were numerous figures flying over towards Tian Fei's camp. The one who was the fastest, leading the group, was like a rolling cloud, his huge sleeves fluttering in the wind. It was Heaven Saint Palace's head, Gu Han. The people from the three holy lands had finally arrived. Jun Moxie's face darkened and his eyes turned cold. Mei Shuayan's face turned pale, but an immense rage and murderous intent surged in her heart. One has to pacify internal affairs if they wish to resist foreign aggression. Jun Moxie mumbled lowly, his eyes gleaming. Fears of future consequences is like feeling brambles and thorns in one's back. Even if the world is doomed because of this, it must be eradicated. It absolutely has to be eradicated. He said this with such great resolute. Mei Shuayan was shocked, turning around to look at him. My brothers must not die in vain, Jun Moxie said calmly. The main culprits, the strange races, will have to pay the price. But those who watched on from the sidelines will have to get me an explanation. Otherwise, I will feel Eagle King staring at me from the Yellow Springs. That gaze makes me feel guilty, unable to be at peace. There are 8 Saint Venerables, 3,000 Eagle Brothers, and 2,000 Bear Brothers below. They are all looking at me. The look in their eyes are that of trust. I, Jun Moxie, must not let my brothers down. Even if because of this, I have to pay the price of dooming the continent, I will demand for this explanation. Otherwise, this will continue to happen again. And we already cannot afford to lose any more brothers. After he said this, Jun Moxie strode out with big steps to meet them. Behind him, Tiger King, Bear King, and Crane King's eyes were filled with light. Their gazes were fixated on Jun Moxie's back view as they remained motionless. As she watched her beloved's back view, Mei Shuayan felt her sight getting blurry. In the tent, Jun Moxie sat on the central seat, which was at the highest position. He looked disdainfully down at Gu Han and the rest, his gaze as cold as dagger. Mei Shuayan sat down on the seat beside him. Bear King, Tiger King, Crane King, Solitary Eagle, and Feng Wanyun sat beneath Mei Shuayan. These 7 people had an extremely serious look on their faces. Gu Han walked into the tent first, his face full of smiles. But he instantly noticed something was off about the atmosphere of the place. He asked in surprise. Manor Lord Jun, did something happen? Why? Why is it like this? Behind him, the rest of the Heaven Saint Palace, Shi Ruo Chen, Guyen Ao Bo, and Mo Wu Dao streamed in, but were all surprised. They didn't know what was Jun Moxie intending to do, putting on this attitude. Sit. Jun Moxie raised his hand, his face stern and unfeeling, his gaze as cold as ice. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1180. I want an explanation. Reinforcements? What reinforcements? Jun Moxie chuckled coldly. Who is whose reinforcement? Mo Wu Dao, Lord Mo, Did water get inside your heart? You must think carefully before you speak. Don't let others think that the heads of the three holy lands only know how to fart. And don't know how to speak human words. Mo Wu Dao may not be a high-leveled expert, but his status had him highly revered, even where the saint venerable seniors of the three holy lands would treat him courteously. When had he been this crudely criticized in his face? In his shock, his face burned and blood rushed to his head. He was about to speak but was stopped by Gu Han. Then, Gu Han sat down first. Gu Han knew that Jun Moxie was not someone to turn so arrogant and full of himself the moment the heat got to his head. There must be a reason why he was like this. Otherwise, there was no way he would be this cold and aloof today when he was still aiding them to fight the enemy and even gifted them with medicine yesterday. Manor Lord Jun, if Heaven Saint Palace has offended you in any way, do speak without holding back. The enemy is before us. If we are unable to erase this estrangement, I believe it'll be hard for us to cooperate. Gu Han said with a smile, sitting peacefully. Well said. Senior Gu talks plainly. Since that's the case, I shall be straightforward and speak bluntly. An icy smile appeared on Jun Moxie's face. But I wonder how many people are there exactly that remain guard at the old battleground of the war for seizing the heavens? Gu Han's eyes narrowed. As expected, something must have happened. But I wonder what did those people do exactly? To make this untamable evil monarch this furious? But now is the crucial time that both of us must work together was one to resist the enemy's invasion. It is truly not a good time for any disagreement. Especially when they are such an important force in this battle. There are a significant number of people that stay guard at the battleground of the war for seizing the heaves. Gu Han pondered before answering honestly. After all, the strange races may not keep their word. Who knows when they will attempt to trespass the boundaries? Jun Moxie scoffed coldly. In Senior Gu's opinion, from where they are located, will the collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains and the eruption of the volcanoes cause them to suffer great casualties? This is definitely impossible. Gu Han chuckled. Those are the elite experts that three holy lands have picked out carefully. The weakest are already of saint cultivation. Although the collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains was unexpected, but it definitely won't be able to bury all of them. I can assure of this. Oh. Is that so? But I wonder how many people are there exactly? And what is the distribution of their cultivation like? Jun Moxie tilted his head. Knowing that Jun Moxie had deeper meaning in asking this, Gu Han avoided being long-winded and gave a detailed explanation. For generations, there will definitely not be less than 300 people who guard the battleground of the war for seizing the heavens. And the numbers have been increasing. Of which, there are 2 saint monarchs, 18 saint venerables, 100 saint emperors, and 200 saints. The saints will be changed every few hundred years. All the saints that stood guard will return to the Heaven Saint Palace to prepare breaking through the bottleneck into the realm of a saint emperor. Then after they break through, it is another rotation of people and so on. Gu Han chuckled and said, by rotating in this way, we use the strange races to help train our soldiers to be ready for battle. To raise the quality of our experts. In this way, we can ensure that for generations, experts will be produced. In fact, after the incident, the Heaven Saint Palace and 3 Holy Lands have truly lost many of our forces. This batch of people is the most elite forces that we are able to offer. What a great way to train your soldiers. The Heaven Saint Palace is truly powerful. The most elite force, hee. Jun Moxie chuckled mockingly. Since the 3 Holy Lands have such a tremendous force, You definitely must not take these mere strange races to heart. Then, this bunch of elite forces of yours, where are they now? Naturally, they are guarding the battlefield. That is their duty. If there is no major incidents, how could they recklessly, Gu Han was stunned when he said this. The battlefield of the war for seizing the heavens? The pillar of heaven's mountains has already collapsed. What battlefield is there? Major incidents? Whatever that has happened, is it still not considered a major incident yet? Jun Moxie said icily. I am truly unable to understand what Senior Gu said earlier. Could it be that Senior Gu is joking? Indeed, I spoke wrongly earlier. What manner Lord Jun is saying is. And, could it be that in the huge battle today, they did not take part? Gu Han's face instantly turned ugly. The moment they arrived, they could already tell that there had been an extremely intense battle that happened here. And the intensity of the battle could be said to be one that they had never seen before in all of their lives. Just from the smallest clues, there had been at least 20 Saint Venerables who had participated in this battle, and many of them had died. Otherwise, the heaven-earth spiritual chi would not be in such great disequilibrium. So Gu Han had assumed that those who were standing guard at the pillar of heaven's mountains definitely took part in this battle. Who knew? Jun Moxie had suddenly asked all these questions. The answer was obvious. These experts did not take part in this battle. Now, if Gu Han was no longer clear of where the problem lay, then he would have lived in vain for the past 3,000 years. All the experts of Heaven's Saint Palace and Mo Wu Dao and the rest all changed. Some of them had a furious look in their eyes. With everyone's experience, it was not difficult to figure out what sort of loss would have resulted from a big battle like this. Since those people did not partake in the battle, then all those losses would have naturally fallen onto Tien Fa Forest. This was something no one could accept. Even Mo Wu Dao had a furious look in his eyes. Right now, they understood Jun Moxie. If they met with something like this, they may have an even bigger reaction than him right now. This was hitting someone who was down. And someone who was their own comrade. And the outcome of this battle would directly affect the lives of the world. The entire continent. This sort of action was extremely bastardly. No one had never imagined those people to be crushed to death by the pillar of heaven's mountains because that was impossible. And now, there were no battles going on elsewhere. Only here. There was only one conclusion. They did not wish to assist. So they didn't. The battle yesterday, the strange races deployed almost 200 men. Of which, there were many experts. Including thousands of hell-enduring ghosts, 400 over frenzy blade-enduring earth, and 13 supremacy-enduring heavens. And fought against my Tien Fa brothers who had rushed here for 6 whole hours. Until now, even after the battle, Tien Fa has not seen a single reinforcement. Jun Moxie stood up, his hands behind his back as his sharp and incisive gaze swept across the faces of those from the 3 holy lands. Under his gaze, everyone was speechless and lowered their heads. All of them felt utterly embarrassed and ashamed. They had used all possible ways to get Tien Fa Forest and Evil Monarch Manor to forget about their previous grievances and partake in the battle. They had rushed day and night, covering great distances to the pillar of heaven's mountains to take part in the war. But they had never imagined that when these reinforcements were rushing into battle after their long journey, soaked in blood, their own men who were nearby continued to look on without lifting a finger. Everyone felt like they had received a hot, tight slap across their faces. Would you like to know the details of this battle? An inconcealable sadness appeared on Jun Moxie's face, but also a look of absolute pride. All the other members of TNFA beside him had a look of grief and pride on their faces. But they all puffed their chests proudly. This was a pride that belonged to TNFA. What their brother's hand exchanged with their lives. At this moment, everyone from TNFA felt proud but grief and indignation. Gu Han could already imagine the whole story. His face was completely red, the green vein on his forehead popping out from anger. He gritted his teeth and said, "I'd like to hear the details." His anger was naturally not because of Jun Moxie being impolite or aggressive, but because of the nonfeasance of those standing guard. Right now, Gu Han was only thinking how great would it be if a crack suddenly appeared on the ground. He'd definitely worm right into it. It would be better than the sort of embarrassing torment at this moment no matter what. This sort of humiliation was given to him by his own men. He could not avoid it. It could not be avoided. He could only listen to it obediently and bear the consequences. This battle. TNFA's first echelon departed from TNFA Forest, traveled miles to arrive at this place. All the members participated in the battle. Jun Moxie's voice suddenly turned louder, as if he was yelling. Eagle King led 3,000 warriors of the Eagle clan. Bear King led 3,000 warriors of the Bear clan. And the 8 Saint Venerables of TNFA Forest, Saint Venerable Lu and the rest, engaged in a bloody battle with the strange races of over 20,000 men. The strength of all these brothers had been boosted through a secret method before coming. The weakest were of a 4th level venerable cultivation. They were only one step away into the realm of a saint. Jun Moxie's voice reverberated in everyone's eardrums. Then Jun Moxie stopped and looked up, taking in a deep breath. All of you benevolent people from the Holy Lands who enjoy speaking of the sake of the world, do you know what is the outcome of this battle? Gu Han only felt like his face was on fire. But he did not have any other choice but to reply. He muttered. Victorious? Victorious. Of course it was victorious. If it wasn't, could you still sit so peacefully here? Not only was this battle victorious, it was a great victory. Almost 200,000 strange races were annihilated, and only less than 10,000 managed to escape back. Of which, a majority of the thousands of hell-enduring ghosts were killed here. As to those over 400 frenzy blade enduring earth, they were turned into ashes. The strongest, those 13 supremacy enduring heavens, were all killed with no exception. Hong. Great disbelief and agitation filled the tent. With the tremendous force of the strange races. Even if the 3 Holy Lands had deployed all of their men when they were in their prime, they would have to pay an unimaginable price if they wished to obtain victory. And right now, TNFA Forest had managed to obtain such a glorious battle result. How was this possible? How is this possible? Mo Wu Dao cried in shock and elation. Senior Gu, I had only told you the outcome of the battle, and the loss on the enemy's side. But do you know what sort of price our TNFA Forest had to pay for this battle? Jun Moxie did not bother with Mo Wu Dao, only staring intently at Gu Han as he said in a low voice. Our TNFA. The 8 Saint Venerable Seniors, Eagle King, and 3,000 Eagle Warriors, and more than 2,000 Bear Warriors, all turned into a legend in this battle. Gu Han raised his head in shock, his face completely white. Would you like to know how they died? Jun Moxie only felt an unsuppressible surge of grief and anger in his heart as he boomed. Not a single one of the brothers from TNFA left their bodies on that battlefield. Aside from Eagle King, who died protecting his comrade, all of them died by self-detonation. And it was all through an extreme self-detonation by releasing their spirit, Xian Qi, and their body. This was how they obtained the glorious results that Lord Mo reckons as impossible. Everyone's body jolted violently, all stupefied. Everyone had already imagined that this battle was definitely extremely dreadful, but they had never imagined that it would be this dreadful. 8 Saint Venerables, 6,000 saints and above, had to use the extreme method of self-detonation to stop the enemies from invading. Right now, I only wish to ask one question. When our warriors were battling, where were your men? The Eagle Bear army had rushed all the way here from afar, without rest. Then where were those elite experts who were the nearest from the battlefield? Jun Moxie gaze laid on Gu Han and the rest. Even if they did not expect the strange races to invade so quickly, let's assume that they did not notice that the battle had begun. But when our men used self-detonation to resist the strange races, where were they? Those experts you had left to stay guard. Even for a first-level Saint Emperor, it is less than an hour's journey from here. Could all these experts be deaf? Are they all blind? Jun Moxie apathetically. The chilling murderous look in his eyes was like a bolt of lightning. Gu Han. Those who had died in the battle are my brothers. Jun Moxie's brothers. He had always addressed Gu Han as Senior Gu, but right now, his addressment had completely changed, calling him by his name. Although his voice remained indifferent, it was full of hostility. The higher-ups of 3 holy lands, the total of almost 50 people, all felt completely ashamed under Jun Moxie's intense gaze. Shame. This was absolutely the greatest humiliation. Watching their own comrades battle to death before their eyes, while their people did not even show their faces. Under the cold gaze of Jun Moxie, Mei Shuiyan, and the rest, Gu Han suddenly felt at a loss for words. Not only Gu Han, everyone from the 3 holy lands found it difficult to speak. Even Mo Wu Dao, who was so silver-tongued, couldn't find the words to say. This was definitely an unforgivable crime. Jun Moxie gritted his teeth and suddenly hollered. Gu Han. My brothers must not die for nothing. I want you to give me an explanation on this matter. The 3 holy lands also must give me an explanation. I must not let our brothers die with a remaining grievance. For this, Jun Moxie, will go to any lengths. At any cost. This story will be continued to chapter 1181. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.